The Aviator flight line allows us to do things with our birds that we were never able to do before. With the harness, we can take them outside, we can give them lots of life experience, but we can't conveniently allow them to fly around. With the Aviator flight line, we can attach the harness to the line and allow them to fly around the entire yard without being worried that they're going to be able to fly away. Now let's take a look at what we need to do to use the flight line. You turn around and look at the back of your package, or if you're on the internet, just look at the diagram on the internet. You can see that we have very specific instructions on how to determine where in your yard or your area you can place the flight line without the bird being able to get to near a tree, fence, table, something like that that they might get tangled up in if they landed on. So what I'm going to do is, in my yard here, pace it off, put down some markers so that we know where we can put the line and safely use it. Now I happen to have some marker paint here. This is made for marking on grass. If you don't have something like this, you can use baseballs, flower pots, whatever you've got, for a one-time only, mark the perimeter of your yard so you know where you can safely put your flight line into the ground. Now I'm going to take this marker with me. I'm going to walk to the end of the yard here. I have a small apple tree down here. I'm going to come down to the tree. When I get to the tree, I'm going to turn around, look towards the center of the yard, and I'm going to want to walk out about 25 feet. Happens to be about 8 paces for me. I'm going to walk out 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I'm going to put a line on the ground. I know that if I put the flight line on the other side of this line, my bird cannot fly all the way to that tree. I'm going to go all the way around the yard. I'm going to walk over to these catalpa trees and do the same thing. No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we've already taken care of the other end of the yard, and I know where the perimeter of the area where I can plant my flight line is. Now let's take a look at what we have in the package here. When you open the package, you're going to find that you have 3 things. You have heavyweight lead, lightweight lead, and the 2 end posts for the flight line. We take the flight line out, we take the rubber band off, separate the post. We find that we have 2 end posts with the line wrapped up from the factory on one side. What we want to do is unwind about 5 feet of line, just to get it out of the way here. Don't unwind the entire thing. Leave most of the line on there. For those that have a yard that's not long enough to accommodate the entire line, we will not be unwinding all the line. Let's take the first end post and go down anywhere inside of our lines or our markers. We can put this end post. So I'm going to put it right next to the white line here. Hold the post vertical and push it right into the ground. Now it has to hold firmly. In this particular case, the ground is very hard, and I'm only able to get it in 3/4 of the way, and that's fine. If you have softer ground, it'll go all the way in. Now, I'm going to take the line. We've taken off about 5 foot of the line, and for the purposes of this video, we're only going to use about 5 feet. And there will be some that have yards that are small enough that they will only be able to use 5 feet. The flight line is still very usable in a small yard. Now we want to be able to make sure that the line does not touch the grass and that it's very taut. So when we're ready to put this line into the ground, we want to pull it back, hold the posts that go into the ground vertical, and pull enough so that this end and that other post on the other end bow down about 1 inch and slide it into the ground. Now that provides enough tension on the line that it's very tight and slick for the flight line to guide along, and also keeps it up off of the grass. Okay, now let's take a look here. We also see that we have 2 end cap washers. One goes down that end and one on this end. That keeps the flight line from getting caught on the end post. I'm going to pull out the heavier weight lead, as we're working with our heavyweight bird here, our heavyweight demonstrator. When we open it up, we find that we have about 6 feet of shock cord. On one end, we have a shiny stainless steel split ring, same kind of ring that you have on a keychain. We're going to open this up and we're going to slide it right onto the line in between the two end cap washers. If you make a mistake, just take it off and move it. And once it's on there, we can see that that slides along there very easily. And when the bird's flying, it has to be able to function very well because the bird's carrying the line along with him and you want as little drag as possible. Let's take a look at the other end. We have a small clamp on the other end, a small clasp, which is going to hook onto the wrist strap from the Aviator harness. Now, just snap it right on. And the reason that the clamp is small is that we need to reduce the weight as much as possible on the entire system because your bird is going to be carrying all this line and the harness. Now, for a big bird like this, the total weight of the harness and lead is a little over 20 grams, which is very insignificant considering most of these larger birds, an Amazon or a macaw, is going to weigh somewhere between 500 and 1,000 grams. But when we consider the smaller birds like cockatiels and conures that may only weigh 100 grams, we have a lighter weight line and we also have a lighter weight harness. The total harness flight line system for the smaller birds is approximately 14.5 grams, which is very light, be the equivalent of a human wearing a 15 or 20 pound backpack. So a cockatiel or small bird, once he gains a little bit of endurance with a little practice, he will easily be able to carry that line over the yard. Okay, now that we are all hooked up, let's take a look and see how it works. What you find is that the combination between the lead off of the flight line and the leash off of the harness gives you about 12 feet of shock cord. Now the bird can fly all over the yard. He flies to the end post. He's able to continue going about 25 feet because the shock cord is 100% shock cord. It will double in length. As he gets closer to the end of the yard, the tension on the line will pull him right back in. Won't take very long for him to figure out how far he can go. And as his endurance increases, as he becomes a better flyer, as you give him more practice, he'll be able to navigate the entire area. Now, if he's going along the flight line, anywhere along the flight line, he's able to go 25 feet in either direction for a total of 50 foot wide. So again, as he gets out here, it starts to tighten up, pulls him right back in. Flies down the other end of the yard. Once he gets to the end post, he's still able to go another 25 feet. Now, if you have a large enough yard and you've utilized the entire line, which is 30 feet long on the flight line, you have the 30 feet plus the 25 feet on either end for a total of 80 lineal feet. So 80 feet long, 50 foot wide is the area that your bird can fly in once he gains a little bit of endurance. For smaller birds, it's going to be slightly smaller because they're not as heavy and they're not as strong and they're not going to be able to pull the line to the extreme that the larger birds can. All right, now that we've had our exercise for the day, it's time to put the flight line away. Now, you might be inclined to leave the flight line out, but that's not a good idea. It's very low and it's easy for somebody to accidentally trip over. And it's also a problem if you're mowing the lawn and you forget it's there, and I know from experience that that can happen easily. Put the harness away, put the bird away, disconnect the lead and take the lead. Let's, in this case, throw it all the way to the other end where you still have the material wrapped up on the post from the factory. Now, if your yard is big enough that you can use the entire length of the 30 feet, you don't need to know how much to unwind because you're going to unwind all of it each time. If you have a smaller yard, the flight line is going to have the factory wrapped material on one end. If you take the other end post that has nothing on it, it's designed the same way and it has hooks on it. And these hooks can be used to wrap up the line that you're actually using each time. That way, when you go to use it next time, you just unwrap this end post and you have the right amount of line already unwrapped. Let's come down here and pull this out. Hold them together and pick up our lead. And we're all done.